What's going on, fantasy football fans? I'm your host, Hussein the Brain, and you're watching The Couch. Welcome to the Week 4 waiver wire pickups video. If your fantasy matchup was against the Cardinals D, Aaron Rodgers, and Randall Cobb, chances are it didn't turn out so well for you. In the 2015 draft, if you highly invested in CJ Anderson, DeMarco Murray, or Shady McCoy, chances are your last week's matchup didn't turn out so well for you either. In this video, we're going to quickly go over some of the previously mentioned waiver wire pickups, talk about some trade options, buy low, sell high candidates. Then I'm going to reveal the new waiver wire pickups, and we have a question at the end for you. Also, we're going to be doing a hashtag AskTheBrain questions of the week in the video where I answer your questions. Make sure you guys subscribe to my VIP waiver wire list. You can click here or follow the link below in the description. So subscribe to my VIP waiver wire list and you'll get the waivers sent to your inbox before anybody else does. So make sure you guys do that. Here are some must pickups that I previously mentioned in videos prior to this one. Tyrod Taylor and Marcus Mariota are two quarterbacks that are absolute must pickups in every league. And as long as you're not in a shallow league, Jameis Winston should also be owned in just about every league. Carlos Williams was a waiver wire pickup that I mentioned from the get-go, and now that LaShawn McCoy has a hamstring injury, which may likely linger for a while, Carlos Williams is a must pickup. He should be your #1 waiver wire pickup if you need a running back. Lance Dunbar, he's a straight up PPR monster. He's good in just about every league though. It doesn't have to be PPR for you to pick him up. Now Theo Riddick is a guy that I wouldn't target in non-PPR leagues, but if you're in a deep league or if you're in a PPR league, he's gonna be a great guy to pick up. Now he won't put up great numbers every game. He'll be a little inconsistent, but in PPR, that's a great RB4, and you know, he can definitely be a great bye-week start, bye-week fill-in, or a flex play on some weeks. Now that Ivory is hurt, Bilal Powell makes for a great pickup. And these running backs, you know, they're hard to upgrade. It's hard to upgrade that running back position. So Bilal Powell becomes pretty valuable. Darren Sproles makes for a good acquisition on your team if you guys reward points for return yards and or PPR points. He's pretty good. I think the Darren Sproles is one of the best players on that Eagles team. Dante Moncrief's a must pickup if you need a wide receiver. Stevie Johnson and Percy Harvin as well are pretty good pickups. Then in deeper leagues, Leonard Hankerson and Philip Dorsett are must pickups if you're in a 14-man or 16-man league. Keep an eye out on Crockett Gilmore's injury. While Charles Clay is a must pickup, he has a high floor, just like Tyrod Taylor. He has a high floor. He's in a lot of the snaps, the Buffalo Bills snaps. He lines up a lot. And man, he really should be owned in just about every league, except if you're in a shallow league and you really don't need a tight end. Eric Ebron, same thing with him. He should be picked up in, if you're in a 10-man league or deeper, he probably should be picked up in your league. And for really deep leagues, Richard Rodgers is a good tight end too. And that concludes all my previously mentioned waiver wire pickups. Let's talk about some sell high options, some guys that you want to trade away. Andy Dalton has a decent matchup going against the Chiefs this week. Then he plays Seattle. Remember, they got Cam Chancellor back. Then he plays in Buffalo. I think the time you should sell him is now. You may want to wait a week, but I would likely try to sell him now. I think he's going to be a good quarterback the rest of the season, but not going to be like he has been the first 3 weeks. I don't think he's going to be able to sustain this production. Ryan Tannehill put up a decent game in week 3 because of garbage time. So I think you should definitely sell high on Tannehill. When I say high, it's not too high, but you know, sell high on what he did in garbage time. Just get rid of him for what you can get. Also, Andre Ellington may be coming back. He'll likely get hurt again, but see what you can get for Chris Johnson or David Johnson. Some people who have these fantasy woes like DeMarco or LaShawn McCoy, and they may be real desperate for a running back. Also, Devontae Freeman, a guy I like. The Falcons' running game surprised me this year, but he put up 1 million fantasy points week 3. You may be able to sell high for him. Don't sell too low on him if you're trading away Devontae Freeman, because he'll be valuable throughout the rest of the season. Now, some players to trade for, to receive on your team. I have Eli Manning. I think this guy's going to be really good. He's a good quarterback too, very high-end QB2, and in deeper leagues, definitely a low-end QB1. Definitely a guy you can start. I like what I saw from that offense. Victor Cruz is coming back. Devastating injury, so I don't know how well he'll be right off the bat, but he is coming back, and that should help him. Drew Brees, not too high on him because I don't like to trade for guys that have appeared on the injury report. Now, guys that appeared on the injury report just statistically perform worse. You know, guys that have been hurt in this year that we're playing in, and in the past year, guys who are injured usually don't perform well. So, you know, if you really need a quarterback, that is a guy that you can buy low for, though. Also, Phillip Rivers. I think you should be able to get this guy pretty much for free. He's a guy that may even get dropped in some leagues where you know that are shallow. So he's a guy that you can try to buy for really, really cheap. Also, Matt Forte, a guy who's pretty versatile. You may be able to buy low on him. He has a good matchup right now going against the Raiders. And CJ Anderson, a guy that I would try to target for real cheap. I don't have faith in this guy. I'm just going to say it straight up. But fantasy owners, sometimes they get emotional. CJ Anderson fantasy owners may get emotional, may want to just trade him away for very little. You may be able to get over on your opponent with this one. And Carlos Hyde, this one's going to be tough. He was the best running back for week 1 in fantasy, so this one's not going to be as easy. It could be worth it. He's been pretty frustrating the past couple weeks. And Kyle Rudolph, a guy who's been getting 6 targets a game. I think it's safe to say we know he's definitely not going to be anywhere near elite tight end this year. But if you're in need of a tight end, Kyle Rudolph is a good guy that you can buy low. Now here are the new waiver wire pickups for this week. Derek Carr is pretty much becoming a must pickup. He is a very high-end QB2 and could be considered a low-end QB1. He's definitely had startable games. Pretty surprised here that he's doing that good. I think he'll be good the rest of the season. He may have some down games, but I like this team. They got Crabtree, Cooper, even their 3rd and 4th wide receivers are looking good. And, man, Derek Carr, he should be picked up in every league. Other options in deeper leagues are Blake Bortles. Yeah, I know he's a Jaguar, not a great quarterback, but playing catch-up, he's going to put up some points, even some points in garbage time, and has a decent matchup going against the Colts this week. And Michael Vick, I don't really like this quarterback that much. He is a high risk, but with high risk does come high reward. He's a guy who can flop some weeks, and I think he'll be good some weeks too, filling in for Ben. He does have Antonio Brown. He does have a great running back. They're on a good team, and they have a little bit of time to prepare. So I think he's going to be good, but too risky for me to just pick up and play and think he's going to have a great game right off the bat. Not too many new running backs to pick up, but a great Marshawn Lynch handcuff is Thomas Rawls, and he could be picked up in deeper leagues as well. He should be worth considering in 12-man leagues or deeper, and if you're really desperate for a running back, he's out there. Charles Sims, I think he has a little bit more value in PPR leagues, but it doesn't really matter what league format he is. He's a good maybe like RB5 to add to your team. And for really deep leagues, the sleeper pickup is Jonas Gray. We all know that Lamar Miller has been total disappointment at the beginning of the season. So look for Jonas Gray to be a good deep league sleeper, kind of like an RB5 for your team, I would say. And for wide receivers, we have Victor Cruz. I mentioned he's coming back from that injury. Ted Ginn Jr. Wow, I was shocked right here when I looked this up. 22 targets. That's really good. He's basically the #1 wide receiver on the Panthers right now. We all know he has speed. Marvin Jones, that's a sleeper pickup. Definitely a good wide receiver 4 or 5 on your team. Kenny Britt, I'd say this guy's more of a deep league guy. He's got 17 targets, a team high of 17 targets for the Rams. They're not a great pass offense. They're not an explosive offense, but he is out there, a good wide receiver 5 for your team if you're in a deep league. Also in deep leagues, take a look at Allen Hurns, Brian Hartline. Dwayne Bowe has been a healthy scratch for the beginning of the season. So Brian Hartline is decent. And look for Jordan Norwood of the Denver Broncos. For tight ends, I think people are starting to realize now, last week was kind of slept on a little bit, but people will start to realize this, and he'll get picked up this week. Antonio Gates, he's coming off that 4-game suspension, so he's not going to play week 4, but I expect him to play week 5, and Darius Green's hurt too, so this is probably the #1 tight end pickup this week. Also, Julius Thomas, a similar situation. He's not suspended, but he is hurt, and he will return soon. So he's a tight end to pick up. I think he'll have a decent year. Not a great year, but a decent year, as long as he can stay healthy and recover well from this injury. And I ranked my defenses to pick up for this week Now, the first three defenses, Cardinals, Panthers, and Bengals, they're good for this week and for long term. The Bengals are facing the checkdown king, Alex Smith. Now, for my sleeper sort of stream defenses that are unlikely owned in your league, I have the Raiders, Colts, Falcons, and Chargers. Very intriguing here. I like the upside with the Raiders defense going up against Chicago Bears. They're banged up. Make sure you check the status of their wide receivers. I think that's going to factor in. But, you know, if they play, they may even be limited. There's no Jay Cutler. So I do like the upside with the Raiders. I'm very intrigued with their defense. Definitely taking a huge risk whenever you start the Raiders defense. So beware. You've been warned. For kickers, my number one kicker is obviously Brandon McManus. For this week, he's playing at home and for the rest of the season. So he should be picked up in every league. The Cardinals kicker, Chandler Catanzaro, makes the list again. He hasn't put up huge numbers, but he hasn't missed a field goal. The Cardinals have just been scoring every single drive, so it's been tough for this guy to score a lot of field goals for your team. Also, I have Dan Carpenter, the Buffalo Bills kicker. He had a good week. I mentioned him last week on the video. Adam Vinatieri, can't really trust this guy, but he's got a good matchup in a dome facing Jacksonville. Caleb Sturgis, he's the kicker for the Eagles now. Cody Parkey is placed on IR. He's going to be pretty good this game and could be a decent kicker for long term as well. Graham Gano, same thing. Should have a good week and good rest of the season. I like Randy Bullock in a dome facing the Falcons. And other kickers in deeper leagues that are worth consideration may be Josh Lambo, Dustin Hopkins, and Josh Scobie of the Steelers. And for those of you who wanted to pick up Robbie Gould but ask me, thanks for listening. I told you so. He was not the #1 best kicker. So a lot of people asked me and listened to my advice there and didn't pick him up. He got a big goose egg for last week. The Bears got shut out. If you want your question answered on the next video, make sure you use #AskTheBrain. Now let's go to Twitterland and see what questions we have this week. Jimmy asks, waiver pickup Carlos Williams, Danny Woodhead, or Rashard Matthews? Have Big Ben. Do I pick up Tyrod Taylor or Andy Dalton? #AskTheBrain. So Rashard Matthews, he's the real deal for the short term. I really don't know what's going to happen the last half of the season because the Dolphins have basically 5 wide receivers. Remember, they got Kenny Stills, Devontae Parker, just a ton of guys. Jordan Cameron's on that team, and he's probably going to get hurt again. So they got a lot of options. But right now, Rashard Matthews is hands down the #2 wide receiver and the #2 just receiver straight out on the Dolphins. He's good. But you got to go Carlos Williams here. No brainer. He's a running back, and he's starting for week 4. It could be starting longer. He's got a touchdown in every single game for the first 3 weeks. So definitely go Carlos Williams. Andy Dalton's good, but you got to go with Tyrod Taylor here. If he doesn't get huge passing stats, he'll get you those rushing yards. He's proven that. So you got to go Tyrod Taylor and Carlos Williams. Hank asks, please advise, drop Teddy for Carr and drop Charles Johnson for Dunbar or Andrews. Non-PPR, thanks. #AskTheBrain. Yeah, Teddy Bridgewater, just drop him. There's really no reason to keep this guy, especially a guy like Derek Carr on the waivers. Derek Carr very likely could finish a top 15 quarterback. He definitely is one right now in fantasy. So drop Bridgewater, pick up Carr. That's a great pickup. Also Charles Johnson. Yeah, a guy I'm not, I never picked up in any of my leagues, but I wouldn't be dying to drop him per se. But for a great running back like Lance Dunbar, yeah, you got to pick him up. I mean, okay, Lance Dunbar is not great. I take that back, but he's going to add depth to your running back. How about if you got a running back on bye and your other running back gets hurt? You're going to really wish you had Lance Dunbar. And you're not going to be, oh, I got Charles Johnson. You're not going to do anything with Charles Johnson. Likely with Charles Johnson, you're probably going to be sitting him the one game he does good. So drop Charles Johnson, pick up Dunbar, and of course, pick up Derek Carr. Last week, we had a contest going on to see who would win these cool Fantasy Couch shades. Yup, and Techie Tech won. He guessed really close to what Tom Brady actually threw. He threw 2 touchdowns and 358 yards. So congrats, Techie Tech. You won some cool pair of sunglasses. I'll hit you up on the YouTube comments. Make sure you look up on that and send me your information. So why not do another contest this week? I'll be giving away another pair of Fantasy Couch shades as well as some Fantasy Couch stickers to the person that answers the question correctly. So for this week, out of all the starting quarterbacks playing in week 4, who will put up the least amount of fantasy points? So who's going to be the worst starting quarterback for week 4? We're doing standard scoring, which is, of course, 4 points for a passing touchdown, 1 point for every 25 passing yards, and 6 points for rushing touchdown, and 1 point for every 10 rushing yards. So who's going to be the worst fantasy football quarterback this week out of all the starting quarterbacks? So go ahead and leave a comment below with your answer. Go ahead and tell me the name of the starting quarterback as well as the amount of fantasy points, just in case we need a tiebreaker. And that about wraps up this video. For you guys asking me advice about what to do with Jeremy Hill or TJ Yeldon, I told you so in this video. So they were my bust. I don't know what to tell you now. I told you not to pick them up. I actually don't hate Jeremy Hill. I just thought picking him at number 11, 12, 13, or 14 overall was way too high, which is likely where you got him. So watch this video as a quick reminder, my sleepers and busts before the season started, so check that out. Also, make sure you subscribe to the YouTube channel. You can click this right here or click the subscribe button below. Also in the description below, don't forget to sign up for my VIP waiver wire list. So follow that link, subscribe, you'll get the waivers before anybody else. I'll see you guys on the next video.